Hello and welcome to the Crowley ISD PLC Curriculum Preview for the second 6 weeks for 6th grade. I'm Felicia Wilkerson, the Elementary ELAR and Social Studies Coordinator. I look forward to working with teachers and instructional leaders throughout the school year. Please feel free to communicate with me for any questions and for additional support. For this curriculum preview, you'll need the Unit 2 IFD, the Content Builder document, and the PLC for the Reading PLC documents. Today we're going to identify curriculum hotspots and provide comprehension instructional strategies that will include the close reading using notice and note strategies. I'm going to model and lead you through an analysis of the readiness standard. I'm going to provide seed discussion questions for your PLC as a model of how to focus on learning in your PLC. I will model how to complete the Content Builder and the PLC for the Reading PLC documents. The 4 essential questions that's going to drive this PLC are: what do we expect all students to learn? How will we know if they learned it? How will we respond to students who don't learn? And how will we enrich those who do learn? Let's take a moment to review the Grade 6 heat map. This unit begins in fiction. So we know that fiction is a readiness standard 4-star. So let's take a look at the SE 6.6a. We see that students still need improvement in this area, so this SE will be our hotspot. Now let's take a look at the other side where the knowledge and skill statement is dual coded with Figure 19 process standards. We see that when 6.6 knowledge and skill is dual coded with Figure 19D, we see a decrease from Test 1 down to Test 3. We've gone from 70 up to 71 and down to 61. So we'll definitely want to consider this in our planning. Also, 6.6, when it's dual coded with Figure 19F, that's making connections within and across various genres, we see a steady decline from 67 to 61 to 56. So we definitely want to consider this as we think about our instructional planning. So now we know what we're going to focus on is our SE 6.6a and our knowledge and skill statement 6.6 when it's dual coded with Figure 19, D, and F. Please pause the video at this time to allow everyone to turn to their IFD. We're going to deconstruct the knowledge and skill statement 6.6 and look closely at the SE 6.6a. To set a purpose for reading, when we study a standard or a bundle of standards, we read with this question in mind. What do we want our students to learn? First, let's look at Figure 19D. This is our process standard for making inferences. It reads, make inferences about text using textual evidence to support understanding. Deconstructing this standard, we see that the cognitive expectation is make. The content is what we teach, that is inferences about text. And next we have in what context, or the complexity of which students are required to make inferences. For fiction, students are required to make Students should make inferences about the structural and literary elements of fiction, sensory and figurative language used in fiction, and the purpose of the elements in language used in sections or sentences. They're also expected to use textual evidence to support their understanding. The IFD guides us to review the knowledge and skill statement for each literary genre for additional information on inferring in each type of literary text. So since we know that we're going to start in fiction, let's go ahead and review 6.6 Knowledge and Skill Statement. The knowledge and skill statement reads, students should understand, make inferences, and draw conclusions about the structure and elements of fiction and provide evidence from text to support their understanding. So we see the three different levels of thinking in this knowledge and skill statement as understand, make inferences, and draw conclusions. The content that we're teaching are the structure and elements of fiction, and students should provide evidence from the text to support their understanding. Now let's look at 6.6a, the student expectation. Students are to summarize the elements of plot development in various works of fiction. Possible works of fiction may include fantasy, mystery, historical fiction, science fiction, and realistic fiction. So let's review question number 1 again. What do we want our students to learn? That is, what do we want them to be able to do after reading carefully both the knowledge and skill statement and 6.6a? We want them to be able to make inferences about the language and structure of fiction, and we want them to be able to summarize plot development. So what strategies must they have to be successful? Please pause the video at this time to allow for discussion and to write the learning statement for this question. What do we want our students to learn? Next, let's look to our content builder. We need to begin by placing our readiness standards in the green section. So for this PLC, I've chosen to put the knowledge and skill statement 6.6 as well as the student expectation 6.6a. The reason why is because we cannot meet the standard of the SE sufficiently and make our students proficient readers without also addressing the knowledge and skill statement. The knowledge and skill statement is your large overarching standard, and then the ABCD are your SEs, your student expectations. Those are the skills needed within the knowledge and skill statements. So we've studied the standard, the knowledge and skills statement 6.6, where students need to be able to make complex inferences about text using text evidence to support their understanding. These inferences can be about literary elements, the language used in fiction, the purpose of the language used, as well as be able to summarize elements of plot. And we know that both of these question types are represented on STAR. What do students need to do to access learning? Well, they need to be active readers, and that's where our metacognitive process standards, figure 19, come in. In order to make complex inferences about text, students need to establish their own purposes for reading, they need to ask all types of questions of the text, and they need to continuously monitor and adjust their comprehension. Now, how can students demonstrate their learning? They're going to demonstrate that they understood the text and the sensory language and the figurative language and the literary elements when they're able to successfully make inferences about text, when they're able to successfully summarize information in the text, maintaining its meaning and logical order, and when they're able to make thematic links or make kind of connections between and across multiple texts of various genre and provide evidence to support their understanding. Now, supporting standards for fiction are 6.3a, 6.6b, and 6.6c. 6.3a is about the whole text, where students have to be able to infer the implicit theme of a work. And we know that theme is always a question that's going to be asked in the assessment, because it's a question that is posed, what's the message of the story? So, to focus on learning, let's try to address question number 2. How will we know students learn? Do students know and can they demonstrate their learning to the depth and complexity of the standard? That's what we continuously ask ourselves. Now, let's consider, what does successful learning look and sound like in the classroom? And how can you ensure that your classroom assessments, your assignments, your tasks, your quizzes, your questioning, and etc. match the level of the standard. Please pause the video at this time to allow for discussion to discuss how are you going to know that the students have learned to the depth and complexity of the standard. Question number 3 to focus on learning, because our overarching idea of a PLC is to ensure all students learn. So we have to tackle the question, how will we respond when students don't learn? Now this can look different ways at different levels and at different campuses. So I want you to review the questions on the screen. Dufour says that our interventions must be timely, directive, and systematic. And some great questions are posed here. For timeliness, for example, it asks how quickly are we able to identify students who need additional time and support, and how quickly are we able to respond when a student has been identified as in need of additional help. Now this could be both on the classroom level and at the campus level. As a teacher, we must provide timely interventions. Is our response directive, and is it systematic? And our response must be intervention and not remediation. Please pause the video at this time to review these questions and discuss with your team, what do we do when students don't learn? For those students who learn, we want to extend them. We want them to continue learning as well through differentiation. We're going to differentiate the what, differentiate the how, and differentiate the why. We can differentiate content, process, product, the affect. We differentiate because of student readiness, interest, and the student learning profile. We differentiate how we give them access to learning, their motivation and engagement. We differentiate by appropriating the level of challenge, and differentiate how students are allowed to express their learning. Now let's review the PLC for the Reading PLC document. So we know we're going to start in fiction, and you can choose any or all of these texts for this unit. I'm just going to circle short stories if I were planning a day or two. Students should use really all of these thinkings, but definitely establish a purpose for reading using their background knowledge, summarize, make inferences, ask questions, and monitor their comprehension. The evidence of learning, I'm going to choose the Notice and Note graphic organizer because that's the strategy that I'm going to share with you today. I'm going to use student discussions to gauge that students are learning because they're always going to be discussing, and I'm going to be in the power zone listening to those discussions. The instructional strategies that I'm going to share today is a close reading strategy called Notice and Note, and of course I'm going to have cooperative learning structures. The instructional strategy I will share with you today is called Notice and Note Close Reading Strategies. There are 6 signposts for students to notice, note, and discuss. These signposts encourages close reading and teach students to be alert for text features that are common structures and elements of fiction. They alert students to stop and think, and therefore this strategy supports metacognition and self-monitoring. The signposts are contrasts and contradictions, aha moment, tough questions, words of the wiser, again and again, and a memory moment. Signposts emphasize the text features that reveals the signpost and the questions students should consider. This is your text-dependent question where students make complex inferences about text using text evidence. The signposts represent what we want students to do as they read. They notice the clues to the signpost, and the anchor questions are the literary element it helps them understand. As you teach each signpost, create an anchor chart for your classroom wall. These anchor charts will serve as great anchor lessons and remind students to always notice and note. To explain the signposts, decide upon an order for teaching the Notice and Note signposts. Then set aside time to teach each signpost, and some can be taught together. Teach each signpost lesson with the text that illustrates the targeted signpost. Use a gradual release model, and think about the generalizable language you will use which students can carry with them to the next text they read. We want to teach for transfer of knowledge. The gradual release model works well with this close reading strategy. You will demonstrate, then turn over part of the task to the class, have them collaborate, and then they will do it on their own. So first you want to explain the signpost and the anchor questions. You want to tell students you'll show them how the signpost you are teaching works by sharing a short text. Read aloud to the first occurrence of the signpost you're teaching. Then maybe read a second section, stopping at the next instance of the signpost. Point out to students and ask them to turn and talk in pairs about the anchor question. Then you may want to read the third section and perhaps a fourth section, this time releasing more responsibilities to the students as you ask them both to identify the signpost and discuss the anchor question. Read to the end of the selection. Now turning over a little more responsibility to students, ask them to identify the most significant example of the signpost in the entire passage, discuss the anchor question, and report back to the group. Tell students to watch out for the feature in their independent reading, to mark those they find and write down their thoughts as they think about and reflect on the anchor questions. At this point, you've turned over all responsibility to the students. The rationale and benefits of using the close reading strategies of Notice and Note are: it gives students a scaffold so they read closely and develop lifelong learning habits. It creates skilled, observant, engaged, and independent readers. It encourages students to use textual evidence. It alerts students to what's happening in the text. It allows students to make inferences about the text, and it establishes a purpose for reading. How will we know the students learned? Well, the Notice and Note comes with different types of graphic organizers, and I will attach a PDF file with all of the graphic organizers along with this video. And here's a graphic organizer that is for the signpost contrast and contradiction. I want to share an example of student discussions during the reading of Tuesday of Another June. Students noticed the contrast and contradiction of June's close relationship with her mom, but June failed to tell her mom that she was being bullied by another girl named June every Tuesday at swim practice. Listen to the students' thinking processes as they responded to the question, why is she doing that?
I'm feeling that our June is very sad. She's angry. She wants to do something about the way she's being treated. But I'm wondering, why is she telling her mom? What do you think? What are you noticing?
I'm questioning why she hasn't stood up to the other June.
Okay, your mom?
I think she's not telling her mother because she doesn't want her mother to worry since she comes from work tired and she's always busy, so she doesn't want to warn her mother.
Okay.
I'm thinking June is afraid to stand up for herself
Why?
because
Well, what did her mama tell her at the beginning?
Be good.
Well,
don't get in a fight. Run to me.
run to me. So do you think that so do you think that her mom has prepared her well to take care of herself?
No.
Huh?
Her mother hasn't taught her how to stand up. She's taught her how to come to her.
What does the words, we are two women alone in the world, does that empower June or does you think that weakens June? How?
I'm questioning, her mom sees her every day and stuff, right? And she sees all of that. I wonder if her mom's, if June's lying
But
to her
maybe
mom.
maybe she's lying to her mom. Maybe she's wearing long sleeve. Maybe mom is so tired, all she has time to do is come home and cook and go to sleep. Because remember, June is a latchkey kid. Is mom there when she gets there?
No.
Okay.
I'm noticing that not just all the swim teacher and their mom is noticing, but all the kids too that are there when it's happened. They're not doing anything.
I know.
It also says that everybody else started calling her that too. So
Oh, y'all are making some wonderful observations. Yes.
I'm wondering if anybody in the story later on is going to help June.
Ah.
I appreciate you so much for joining me today in this curriculum preview. When you plan on implementing the Notice and Note close reading strategies, please invite me, as I would love to see classroom implementation. Or if you would like for me to come in and do a model lesson, I'd love to do that as well. If you have suggestions for future curriculum previews, please submit ideas to the email on the screen. Also, I'd love to hear from you if you have an instructional strategy that you would like to showcase in an upcoming video. Finally, please be sure to submit a copy of the PLC for the Reading PLC document to the appropriate campus designee. Until next time, goodbye.